In March of last year, a team of Italian researchers pointed satellites at the Giza plateau, not at the pyramids, but through them, into the rock and underneath. And what came back was 8 hollow shafts dropping 648 meters into the bedrock, wrapped in these spiral pathways feeding into 2 chambers the size of city blocks. So 2 kilometers of structures under all 3 pyramids. That's the claim. Now, let me show you the whole thing. Check it out. His name is Filippo Biondi, and your first instinct is going to be to write him off. Don't. Look at the resume first. So this man, he has a PhD. He did his undergrad work at a university in southern Italy, his doctorate in Rome, at one of the oldest universities on Earth. So he's very credentialed. He's done radar and remote sensing research affiliated with the university in Scotland. He's peer-reviewed 1 million times in publications on synthetic aperture radar, SAR, including a 2022 paper on pyramid structure that went through review and got published. And then there's this. Biondi spent years doing radar and synthetic aperture radar work for the Italian military. He was recently on Joe Rogan, and Rogan asked him about it directly. And he said some of that work he wasn't even able to talk about because it was too classified. So he's done classified, dense radar. That's who's making this claim about the pyramids. So how do you look under a pyramid from space? Good question. Well, the base of it isn't that exotic. It's called synthetic aperture radar, SAR. Satellites already do this. What you do is you fire a pulse of energy at the ground, and then you measure what bounces back, and then you build a picture. So weather satellites, mapping satellites, military satellites, it's all pretty routine technology right now. The problem isn't that radar doesn't go 100 meters into limestone. It just doesn't. So you bounce a pulse off the Giza plateau, and you get the Giza plateau. So what Biondi does is he does something different. He doesn't read the bounce, he reads the vibration. All right, so what that means is he takes the radar returns and converts them into what's called phonic data, sound essentially. Because everything on this planet is vibrating a little. Traffic, wind, the ocean, the earth itself is humming. It never stops. So solid bedrock doesn't ring the same way that a hollow shaft does. So if you can measure movement in the rock precisely enough, millimeter type level, the shape of what's underneath starts to emerge out of the noise. So you're not photographing it, you're listening to it. So here's the part that got my attention. The obvious objection to this is, well, you're not looking at a picture, you're looking at some sort of software interpretation of vibration data. And maybe the software is finding shapes that aren't really there. Pattern recognition run amok, if you will. Fair. That's the right question to ask. Except Biondi says he's not using one satellite. He's using multiple different satellite constellations. So separate systems, different orbits, different hardware, different countries, different manufacturers, and they're all returning the same matching signals. So different instrumentation, same result. That's not exactly proof, but that's what you'd want to see if it were real, and independent confirmation is how this is supposed to all work. So, what are they all seeing? So, let's start at the base of the Khafre pyramid. Of 5 structures, not 5 random voids, 5 identical structures. Connected by pathways, the scans read as geometric. So straight lines, deliberate angles, each one containing 5 horizontal levels stacked with sloping roofs. That's the shallow part. Below them, you have 8 cylindrical structures, hollow, vertical, like wells, and each one wrapped in a spiral pathway descending around the outside, like a helix. A ramp corkscrewing down around a hollow core. 8 of them. They drop 648 meters. And at the bottom, those 8 shafts converge into 2 cubic chambers roughly 80 meters on every side. Each one could swallow a 25-story building whole. So the complex spans about 2 kilometers beneath the plateau, which means it doesn't sit under one pyramid. It runs under all 3 and the Sphinx. So in that version of the story, the pyramids aren't the structure. They're like the marker, if you will. So let me make that number real, because 648 meters doesn't really mean much of anything to anybody. Okay, so, and I get that. So that's 2,100 feet straight down into solid rock. The Eiffel Tower is 2,000 feet tall. So take the Eiffel Tower, stack a second Eiffel Tower on top of it. Now, bury the whole thing. The whole thing is crazy. That's how deep these shafts go. The deepest anyone has confirmed digging at Giza in ancient times is about 100 feet. So this is 20 times that. Nature doesn't really make 800 meter cubes, and it doesn't make 800 matching spirals. So the $1 million question, what is it? Biondi has thoughts, and this is where he goes away from science and into speculation. And to his credit, he says so out loud when he's going past what he can show you scientifically. He's just making guesses. That's all we can do. So he doesn't think the pyramids were tombs. He talks about acoustic studies, computer simulations, the idea that these structures were built to resonate, to vibrate, that the whole thing is tuned, if you will. So he's specifically studied the harmonic resonance of the Khafre pyramid. And when he was on Joe Rogan, he went a little further. They got onto the granite box in the king's chamber, that big, precisely cut, empty granite coffer. Rogan asked him just to speculate freely. So Biondi said it himself, what he was about to say isn't scientifically recognizable. And then he said maybe the box was like an antenna, that all the vibration from below transmits up into the granite, and that a person lying in it might have a induced out-of-body experience or something crazy like that, like a gateway, which is wild. So he flagged it as speculation, but that's what the man thinks he's looking at. So not a tomb, but more like a machine. And then in January, he goes on Rogan for 2 hours, and it gets kind of bigger. He says he's finding similar underground features at ancient sites in Peru and in Russia. Same technique, same signatures, different continents, different sites, different locations. And he suggests Giza's history might run back 12,000 years, roughly twice the textbook date. So he's setting up a foundation in Malta to keep going. He wants to send cameras down there and not shovels, which is good. But Egypt isn't really having any of it. Zahi Hawass says no radar was used under Khafre at all, and the whole thing belongs into the dustbin of history. He's the Egyptologist that gatekeeps this. So no one's going down there for now. The scans are all we've got. I can tell you if it's real. I can't tell you if it's real, of course, but here's what I keep coming back to. It's not the 648 meters. It's the 8 spirals, 8 hollow columns with ramps wound around them. What is that? Why is that there? That's not a shape you find. That's not a shape someone mistakes. So what I would say, go hear from him yourself on the Rogan episode 244.3. Go watch UnchartedX, who does amazing fieldwork at Giza. Both are in the links below. So 8 spiral shafts, 648 meters down. What is it for? You tell me. Put it in the comments. If you liked the video, hit subscribe and check back next Friday for a government conspiracy story that will shock you. So see you in the next rabbit hole. I hope you enjoyed this.